Said AIM is the largest trade association in Massachusetts. We have all kinds of industries. We have biotech, healthcare, clean tech, traditional industries. We're about 35% manufacturing. The rest of it is anything else in the state, frankly, financial services. So we're not primarily in manufacturers association. Our focus is Massachusetts. And frankly, if Joel had stopped his talk at the 5-minute mark, I would have agreed with you 100%. It was only when he got into single state regulations and single state laws that we really have a problem, and this has primarily been our focus against the Safer Alternatives Act. We have worked with Joel's operation and the Office of Technical Assistance, the DEP, EPA, and others to bring safer alternatives to our members. We've run hundreds of seminars. We certainly have no problem with any clean technology coming in. We want our members to use every safer alternative out there. We have no problem with any of that, and I agree with Joe 100%. We have to get the market to change this. The problem becomes is when bureaucrats and legislators start requiring things to be done without really knowing what's behind all these processes. You know, the first thing you do when you look at a law is to see if you have a law already in the books that does the exact same thing. And the toxic use reduction law, which is almost 20 years old now, and has been changed, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, I think we changed it?
Yeah.
Which we supported, by the way. In fact, I wrote several sections of it. And the idea behind that law was or the reform, was to change it so that we go after the higher hazard chemicals and allow the Office of Technical Assistance and the Toxic Use Reduction Institute to start going after what we all believe are the priority chemicals. And as Joel said, the idea is to look at substitutes and to help companies, by education, incorporate those substitutes into their products. And as far as I'm concerned, the Toxic Use Reduction Act does almost everything that the Safer Alternatives Act would do, and it's a law that is currently there. The idea that companies are out there, especially in Massachusetts, deliberately putting dangerous chemicals into products, I think is simply a misnomer. It's not happening. Okay, I've never seen a company that has deliberately put a dangerous product or a dangerous chemical into a product just because that's what they want to do. I don't know who that would be. And if you have anybody, let me know. The Safer Alternatives Law, you know, I hear stuff, part of Joel's talk that I agree with was, you know, the marketplace is moving, you know, we're assisting companies, where, you know, cooperation among companies like Walmart and all these other national companies or international companies looking at their product chain, that's all good stuff, okay? But when you look at the Safer Alternatives Act and you say, well, we're going to cooperatively help companies move. Well, okay, we're doing that already. Do we need a law to do that? We're going to require them to go into safer alternatives. It's going to impact out-of-state companies selling stuff into Massachusetts. Well, the way I look at this is with all these thousands of chemicals, some of which are dangerous, coming into Massachusetts from products that are made all over the world, by the way, and some are put into products which are then put into products which then come into Massachusetts, I simply don't know how you would ever track those products. It's just baffling that the DEP would, or anybody else, would have the ability to track those products. We still get cadmium and lead in from China, and we're only talking about 2 or 3 chemicals at that point. So our biggest problem is that any of these single state laws or single state proposals would hit Massachusetts manufacturers the hardest and basically exempt companies that are selling stuff into Massachusetts. And it would impact our clean tech, and it would impact our biotech, and it would impact all these other projects. And you know what I constantly hear is, well, we'll exempt the clean tech industry. We'll exempt the defense industry. We'll exempt the biopharma industry, the biotech industry. Well, by the time you exempt all those industries here in Massachusetts, there is actually not very much left. And what it also looks at is Evergreen Solar a couple of years ago, in fact I still believe they are, they're one of the top toxic chemical users in Massachusetts with toxic chemicals making their product. So the last thing I think we need is for somebody from OTA or some other bureaucratic operation coming in and saying you can't use those products. Because what will happen is those products will be made out of state. In fact, they're going to China right now to be made. This is one of the problems with Evergreen Solar. Frankly, the whole project is, all the panels are now being made in China. So if you're willing to stop those panels at the border and send them back to China, and at the same time not allow our solar power to increase, then we got to make the difficult decisions like that. And biotech is the same way. So, as Joel said, 40% of our trade is now with the EU. Well, if 40% of our trade is now with the EU, it means, frankly, they're complying with the EU regulations. So, 40% of the companies in Massachusetts making these products simply don't need this Safer Alternatives law because they're already complying with a law that the Safer Alternatives is based upon. So right then and there, you look and you say, okay, now what are the other 60% of the products? Maybe we should start looking at them and see what those are, and start shaping those people to go into Safer Alternatives. We have no problem, by the way, with a national. If this was a national law we were talking about, we simply wouldn't have any problem at all. In fact, we'd probably lobby for it. The toxic use reduction, Joe was wrong, I think, when he said that the Toxic Use Reduction Act does not really impact the final product being made. What the Toxic Use Reduction Act requires you to do is to look at the chemicals you are using to make that product. Okay? Now, admittedly, it does not regulate you after the product is made. That is correct. However, we're a firm believer in if you stop the toxic chemical from being put in there in the first place, it won't be in the final place. It won't be in the final product. So the Toxic Use Reduction Act does indeed do most of what this law is doing. It just gets it at a different level. What we should be doing is helping the companies transition at the manufacturing stage all over the country, in fact all over the world, so that it doesn't end up in the products. A lot of Massachusetts products are not consumer-driven products. I don't have any statistics at my hand, but I don't think a lot of the products here made in Massachusetts are consumer products. I think they go into a lot of other different things. So I simply think that if we're exporting them to other states, or if we're exporting them to the EU, we really need to be mindful of the impact of a single state product legislation would have in those companies. And there in some cases, dangerous products or dangerous chemicals are used but don't end up in the final product. It's very, very possible that a chemical could be used early in the manufacturing stage that is either transitions to a different chemical or a different different product as part of the manufacturing, or in fact never gets into the product. While in Massachusetts, companies who use chemicals like that or use solutions like that would be impacted by this, but a state or any other state who is shipping products into Massachusetts would not be impacted. So the idea that this would level the playing field is simply wrong also. Companies outside of Massachusetts could use dangerous products in their manufacturing process and then ship the final product into Massachusetts, which admittedly does not contain the dangerous product, but in fact the dangerous product was used to manufacture that product. Whereas in Massachusetts it would just be the opposite. If you use it and it doesn't show up in the final product, it would still be regulated. Okay, so this is a big problem with these single state operations. When I hear things like feasible, cost effective, I get nervous, because if a company is making a product and they are in competition with the rest of the world making that product, I guess somebody could say, well, if it costs a penny more to use something else, you should do it and your product will only go up a penny. However, in real life, a penny in some products could actually make the difference between the company shutting down and moving out of Massachusetts. And Evergreen Solar is actually a perfect example. I mean, even with all the help we gave them, it was still cheaper to make those products in China and ship them to Massachusetts or ship them all over the world, okay? And they're talking about 10 cents a kilowatt or something like that. It's an incredibly high, a lot of competition now around the world for all kinds of products. So when I hear somebody say, well, we'll look at the alternatives, and if it's cost effective, we'll only require to do if it's cost effective. Well, that's great if you think it's cost effective, but our members are telling us, you're not operating in the real world. Please, we want your help. We want to be assisted. We want to work with you in shaping the market, but please do not come into our building and tell us what to do, because, in this case, because it simply does not help us. I don't know of one company in Massachusetts that's frankly having a problem competing in the EU because of the dangerous products they use, and I hear that a lot, that this will help companies compete in the EU. but I simply have never met a company that's called me that said, geez, we're not selling into the EU because we don't have a safer alternatives law here that's allowing us to ship into the EU. So with that in mind, I think we could open it up into discussion. But I agree with Joe for, I think, about 80% of what you said.
That's good.
And, well,
I didn't know we agreed on so much.
Oh yeah, we do.
That's good.